You're excited?
very much because uh, we're going to talk about something that I'm really excited to talk about for this
We're gonna make
one.
our
Yeah.
listeners uncomfortable.
As usual, but yeah, so do you want to tell them what we're going to talk about today?
I think this kind of started with our Instagram followers. I kind of put a post and they wanted us to talk about dating and relationships. So I thought since we are doing the first season with physical well-being, we thought that we should mix up and tell them how dating and physical body kind of works, right?
Yeah. The only way that we could see, connecting physical health challenges with dating was to look at reproductive health and specifically something to do with PCOS and PCOD, which is something that I think most women today are struggling with. And the way that we want to take this forward is not to kind of talk more about, the physiological implications of PCOS or PCOD, but to talk about how this one interesting study that kind of shows a heavy correlation between PCOS symptoms and emotional factors, which kind of falls into the broad topic of dating. Do you want to tell our audiences what exactly PCOS is?
Yeah, so this, I think a lot of knowledge about reproductive idea and the biology behind it came from my experience with working in an IVF center.
Yeah.
So I think PCOS is what people understand. I really want to educate people on that. So because the normal thing you will hear is it's a cyst, right? And when
Mhm.
we hear cyst, we usually think of it as a tumor or something like cancer. So I really want listeners to understand it is not a tumor or a cancer. Rather, what happens is there are these chemicals in your body. So one of these chemicals is our hormones. And these hormones kind of we have like male hormones and female hormones, right? So what happens is there's kind of an imbalance that happens in PCOS. So what happens is we have more of a male hormone and less of a female hormone, and this kind of messes up our the whole system about how these eggs are being released from our ovary. So normally what happens is if we actually look at our ovary in a scan, we will have one big egg every month being released and the others few small eggs. But what happens is because of these hormone imbalance, lot of these eggs get matured, but in a very less optimum level. It doesn't get completely mature. So it looks like blobs of cyst in the scan, but it's actually not cancerous or something. It's just unmatured eggs. So that is the PCOS. So what happens is when this male hormones kind of increases in our body as a women, we kind of get acne, facial hair. A lot of women have like facial hair and infertility, irregular periods. So these are things that kind of happens. So yeah, quite
Right.
difficult.
Yeah. So when we look at, these hormones and when you're talking about male hormones and how they are found in plenty in women with PCOS, what could be like, the implication of it? What do I mean is, uh, does this mean that women with PCOS have much more masculine qualities, at least when you're looking at their physiological expression? Uh, does that happen?
So one thing is not gonna change our sex or the sexuality that we have, the femininity that we have. It's not gonna change that. But what it's gonna change is one of the things with testosterone is testosterone has a lot of symptoms in terms of how it reacts in a woman's body. So of course we get a much more higher energy. A lot of these people, testosterone increases your energy, but other than that, this facial hair is something a lot of women struggle with, right? Even as a regular woman, we have a little bit of facial hair, we get very uncomfortable. But these women have in excess. I don't remember if you, there was a girl who passed UP exams or Bihar exams or something. She was like the uh, topper, and her photo was circulating around everywhere in the internet, and she was a girl who was 10th grade or 12th grade, and everybody were commenting on how she looked like a
Oh, she
man.
has facial hair. Yeah.
Yeah. And it is very sad because they don't understand these things can impact the way we look. If it's something that matters to you, it can attack your self esteem as well, and how the world sees you as well. So it is not to say it's not going to change your femininity or your sexual, I mean, your sex, but rather it's just certain characteristics which might kind of come out as male features.
Right. So this leads me to this study that I mentioned earlier. So if you look at this study, right, they found something very peculiar. They were able to look at correlates ranging from emotional, physical, and sexual factors in terms of abuse, and they found that there was a high correlation between PCOS symptoms and emotional factors and physical factors. Interestingly, sexual factors was not something that was found to be highly correlated with these symptoms. But when you kind of go down this rabbit hole of why this could be the case, right? You see that women who, when they were younger, they face a lot of childhood maltreatment. They have a sort of high resilience that kind of comes with it, where they feel the need to kind of suppress their femininity and be strong in this world. So what you see is PCOS is not really a disorder. Maybe it's a theory. Maybe PCOS itself is not really a disorder, but it could be considered as something that comes off as like a protective mechanism to protect your body against something that the body perceives as like harmful.
So it kind
So
of it sounds like what you're saying is because it comes out, it's a very modern problem, right? PCOS is sort of, it becomes a very modern problem. And I think modern women were the first one to experience the fact that I am not a male. And if you ask any woman, she would want to be a man because men have lesser problems. And and even at home, you can see many of the Indian household, you can see the distinction between raising a male children versus a female children. So inherently, lot of women, I feel, has been earning, yearning to become a man or feel like a man or take on man roles, right? So if you want to be a businesswoman or in a career woman, you have to have manly qualities to fight with the equal male that is in the field. So I feel like we are being
I don't
forced
think
into
it's
it.
like this is actually Karen Horney's theory, right? So she talks about this whole thing of like envy that we have over men, but I don't think it's just envy that we have about masculinity or being male. This is again like a thing that Adler talks about, where he says women don't envy male sex, but women envy male freedom. We are not able to kind of exist in isolation by ourselves, where we are good enough, we are healthy enough. So if you look at the levels of stress that we go through just to prove that we are good enough to exist, right? It does take a toll on our body, and when we are taking up so much stress just for survival, what this communicates to the body is that you're not feeling safe. So it's not the right time to procreate, it's not the right time to reproduce. So again, this theory kind of makes sense, where you see that if your body is dysregulated hormonally, there's a high chance that you have people around you who are emotionally stopping you from being yourself. So, which leads us to the next part of our conversation, where where we are connecting dating with PCOS and PCOD symptoms. How do you know if a person is right for you just based on the bodily cues that you kind of give out during the relationship that you're uh, with them? The duration, or it would tell you a lot about your health when you're uh, happy, your body is going to be more regulated. When you are feeling a lot of suppression of your own emotions, when you're feeling a lot of emotions which has to do with safety issues, right, where you're not feeling safe enough to just be yourself, it would again translate in your body, where your body is going to be having issues with like your monthly cycle.
It kind of reminds me of something that you told. It's sort of like your body, your health gives out like a monthly statement of how you
Yeah,
performed that month, based
yeah,
on what you've been feeding to your body emotionally, physically, and socially. Right? You were talking about the blood and the color of the period blood and the
yeah,
cues that's happening, the lifestyle we were living that month. Right?
yeah. Yeah, so to kind of look at that example, just to kind of tell our audience what that was, uh, this was like one, I think it was a reel that I saw where they were examining, it was a qualitative examination where they said, if you look at the color of your monthly period blood, it tells you a lot about how your period has been throughout it. So if it's like dark brown, that would mean that it's old blood. So your uterus is kind of struggling to push that out. So which is why in the new cycle you get like a bunch of brown stains that you get. And then if it's like deep red, then that would imply that there is a possibility that you have estrogen dominance, which means the estrogen hormone is found in plenty. And likewise, if it's very scanty, it means that there is a chance that there was no ovulation that happened that month. You skipped ovulation. So likewise, it's very important to make sense of, like this monthly evaluation for us to know how we've been living. And this also means our psychological environment comes into picture. Now, to kind of, go from here to understanding how we make choices about relationships, I think it's important for us to talk about nervous system regulation. Do you want to kind of, help our audience understand how the nervous system responds to external stressors and how that translates to hormones and the functioning of hormones?
Yeah, I think in terms of explanation, I think it also comes from me as a woman. I think when I am stressed, I'm most of the time stressed and anxious, and all of these things are something that I deal with. So what happens is when you're feeling a nervous system attack. So say this attack happens when you feel unsafe, or you feel triggered, you feel scared, you feel uncomfortable, whatever it is. It can be an abuse, for something that you experienced in your day-to-day life. For example, you are with your partner, and your partner constantly makes you feel that you are small or you're insignificant. Then every time that you are with that partner, you are getting triggered, and your nervous system is saying, I feel unsafe, I feel triggered, I don't feel good, I don't feel like I'm enough, I don't feel like I am good enough, he doesn't like me because I am not good enough. So the thing is, every time similar things happen, your nervous system gets into your a series of things, series of racket, the loops that starts to kick in. Like your cortisol will shoot up. Your cortisol is your stress hormone. It kind of shoots up and gives out certain signals in your body saying that you're unsafe. So what happens? What are the symptoms? It's there when you're unsafe. Either you can feel completely numb and not having any emotions, or you can feel completely agitated and frustrated and anxious all the time. And this can be either increase in heartbeat, sweating, palpitation, and all of these things, right? So what happens is this cortisol further goes out and sends a signal to your hormones, which is your sex hormones, and tells you that something is wrong. We need to first take care of our nervous system because she's in danger. Even though she is not completely in danger, your brain thinks that you are in danger and tries to protect you, right? So the resources that your body needs to protect your sexual hormones or sexual organs become secondary. So, if you are someone who is feeling that I need to have a child and I'm not having a child, if it's not going to work out because your body is trying to protect you to live rather than procreate. That is secondary. If you don't live, what's the point of having a baby, right? So,
Exactly.
yeah, that's something like an overview of how your nervous system kind of works to protect you.
So, what you're saying is if you are in a relationship with someone who is not really making you feel safe, your body is going to shut down in many ways. And that's one way for you to know that that person is not your person.
Yeah. It's I know it's something that's very hard for listeners to take in. But I think it is a very, if you actually sit, every woman, if you actually sit and think about your toxic relationships or the kind of toxic relationships, any kind of relationship, be it your parents, be it your friends. I remember I have to tell this. I remember I was with a friend. um, I thought
You with
was
a
a
lot of
friend,
friends.
thought was a friend, but with someone. And just, she used to not do anything to me. She used to just be someone who was like, putting me down in every conversation, or making me feel like I'm at wrong, or gaslighting me. And eventually, I became so sick mentally and physically, and I stopped eating, and I had this panic attacks, and it was like going downhill. So it's just that, not
Is
just
this the
with the,
friend that you were living with?
yeah.
Your roommate? Besties?
Enough, enough.
Okay.
So yeah, I mean, it's just that, not what I'm trying to say is, it is not just with romantic partners, it's also with your parents, your siblings, your friendships, all
Yeah,
of
I
them.
guess, like what you said makes sense. If you're like, see, if you're sharing living space with someone, or if you're, in close contact with someone for a long period of time, and that person's constantly making you feel unsafe, your body is gonna like respond to it, even if you don't, show it outside overtly. Your body's gonna have like skin rashes. Your body's gonna have like, all sorts of issues. You don't know where it's coming from, like
Creative
nausea.
issues.
Yeah,
Creative
very
issues.
creative. Your body has like a very creative way of showing you that something's wrong with the decisions you're making. So if you're not ready to listen to your body's gonna just, take it up a notch and make it worse. And you don't want that. So if anyone's making you feel a certain way, and that's not, good for you, one thing that you could do instead of, looking for another person who would treat you well, is to sit with yourself and first figure out what's good for you by being the person who you need for you at that moment.
Hmm.
Is that making sense, Anne? I
Um,
think,
I think
uh, I-
what is going on in my mind is, so you're saying that my maltreatment, whatever things I'm going through, abuse I'm going through, is affecting my body, and it's
yeah,
affecting my hormones, and in turn
yeah,
it's affecting the kind of partner I'm choosing, at the same time the kind of relationship I'm having, right?
yeah.
So what I want to know is that, how do I understand what's happening? How do I understand, if I am in a dysregulated relationship? So you're saying there are cues in our body, right? So say I have
Yeah.
PCOS. Say I started PCOS very as young as 12th grade. Okay. And then I found a relationship much later, say around 3, 5, 6 years later. And then, the relationship is good sometimes, the relationship is not good sometimes. So how do I know if what I am in, the relationship I'm in, is good for me, for my body?
I think if you've had like childhood maltreatment, one thing you need to realize is, as much as it's fun to get into a relationship, it's important to kind of learn to stay alone, stay in solitude, stay with your own thoughts. Because I think one major impact that comes from childhood abuse is you stop believing in yourself. It's very difficult for you to believe in your narrative, your truth. You're constantly looking for validation, whether it's friends or family or whoever, you're constantly looking for that validation. So, one thing that you can do as an act of like, rebellion against your trauma is to sit with yourself and, validate your own trauma, validate your own experiences, and then move forward knowing that you deserve good things. Because if you're gonna again look for validation outside, you're gonna find the same kind of people who were there in your childhood who are gonna come in and who are gonna invalidate you. Because, if as long as you do not know who you are, you're gonna constantly find people who are gonna tell you what you have to be.
Hmm.
So I think for anyone who can identify themselves in this, character, right, where that there was a lot of mistreatment, maltreatment, abuse that happened growing up, are you willing to change? Do you want to change? Do you want to have a happy and healthy relationship? If yes, would you be willing to make this huge sacrifice where you let go of social validation, you stick with yourself, you just sit with solitude
But
and you figure out.
but the world has taught us that, one of the main things when you talk to people, especially in therapy, right? You teach them all of these things. You tell them about self awareness. You tell the need to find yourself, find that selfish love towards yourself first. But then the world around us kind of makes them feel lonely, right? It's easier for people to get that validation and feel safe when there's another person they are keeping on validating them. Say they are in a normal relation, they are in healthy relationship, they are being validated, but their problem is still there, right? So how it if they kind of turn to their problem, the one emotion that comes up is loneliness, and it scares the shit out of them. So what do you do?
Exactly. I think loneliness is something that you have to reframe and sit with, because I can relate to loneliness a lot. I think growing up, there was a lot of loneliness and emptiness that I felt where a lot of things didn't make sense. If you sit and think about anything that you do as normal, right? Like school, education, work, a lot of these things feel very empty if you don't have, a happy relationship to be part of. At the end of the day, I think we do these things hoping that someone will love us. For instance, I study well because I want my parents' validation. I work well because I have colleagues, or like the, whatever the appraisal that I get. So there's always like a validation loop that we're part of. So I think to break free from that, you need to kind of sit with your thoughts alone. I'm pretty sure like it's difficult for someone very young to do it because your brain's not fully developed, right? So but then I think the closer you are to your 30s, which we are, I think it becomes easier for us to kind of calm ourselves and say, okay, it's okay to be lonely, but like during that loneliness, what do I need to do to kind of make myself feel more content, make myself feel more complete? So like things like, reading books. I remember, this one book by this author named Bell Hooks. She talks about love a lot, and it was very comforting. So for me, I think like one way that I dealt with loneliness was to kind of figure out people. So people here doesn't really have to be, just real life people. It can even be people who, communicate through media. So you have your favorite actors and you have your favorite speakers, authors, right? So when you kind of, consume that material, you kind of realize that you're not alone. Like this feeling is not a very unique feeling. It's not a rare feeling. Plenty of people who came before us have felt it. It's just that very few people knew how to navigate it. One good way to navigate it is also therapy, where you go sit and talk, and you understand that most of your life is all of your life, in fact, is your responsibility, and you get to kind of make a choice then. So if I'm choosing a partner, and I have a nervous system that is dysregulated, that's not able to kind of sense which is right, which is wrong, I have a choice here where I could choose to be in a relationship for the sake of being in a relationship, where I'm still lonely when I'm in the relationship, but at least I have a relationship,
Hmm.
right?
Nice.
Or I can choose to work on my nervous system and, choose a partner who's willing to work on their nervous system,
So are
right?
you saying, if we regulate this and take care of our emotional self, are you saying my PCOS will go away?
I think it's a bunch of factors, but I think once you start working on your emotional life, your mindset changes. If you feel loved in a relationship, right? If you feel like you're wanted, if you feel like, you're important, I think that kind of gives you the motivation to live longer. So I'm gonna like probably start working out. I'm gonna, start dressing up. I'm gonna like do things that give me a lot of joy because I'm so loved. I think all of us ultimately know life is very valuable. It's just that we haven't found the right kind of emotional environment that makes it worth the while.
And you can all try and test this model and see. Say if you're doing this for a month, and see how your report card is turning out by the end of the month where you're getting your periods, right? So I think for people with PCOS, the highest stress factor or the chase they have is to know when they're going to get the period, because they're not going to know when it's going to come. So it might, some for many people it comes 2 months, 3 months, 4 months. So it's like a constant wait about, they're also probably worrying about whether they are pregnant or whether they are not getting their periods. So it's sort of a very stressful cycle. But I guess if you start with this, you're loving your body, knowing your triggers and how you're regulating your emotions and wanting to sit with it and being okay with being happy and lonely, and also taking care of your body, naturally your body is going to give out a report card that is going to be in your favor, I guess.
Exactly. I think, that that's very beautifully put, where you say that don't worry about your symptoms, worry about your nervous system, worry about your stressors. Uh, Learn to create safe spaces for yourself wherever you go. And then what you're going to see is automatically your cycle, your body is going to be rooting for you. Your body wants to live. The fact that you have PCOS is a sign that your body loves you.
So I have this question, like, are you saying that people who are in an abusive relationship, they kind of have to leave the relationship? Are you asking them to cut it off, or is it like another way to deal with it?
I think to clarify this, I need to first let you know what abuse is and what abuse is not. I think in relationships, it's very normal for us to get hurt, to feel misunderstood, to feel, like the other person doesn't quite get us. That's very normal. So feeling hurt doesn't mean that you're being abused,
Hmm.
right? For instance, let's say if you grew up in a household where you were constantly criticized and you were made to feel like you can never be good enough, uh, if your current partner is going to ask you a question out of curiosity, right, you might misunderstand that and you might react and say, okay, this is abusive,
Hmm.
right? That is not abuse. Asking questions, asking for clarity is not abuse. Abuse is when the other person says or does something that changes your perception of yourself in a negative way, right? So whether it's physical abuse or psychological abuse, when the person's action or words is in some way negatively changing the way you see yourself, that is abuse. So in the context of abuse, I don't think there is any hope for your relationship. If that person knowingly does something just to hurt you, just to make you feel like you are something you are not, that is not a good relationship to be in. Run away from it. But if the person is saying something with good intentions, but then they are not framing it in the right way, because we are humans, we make mistakes. Sometimes we say things because we are feeling overwhelmed with something else. In that case, take your time, take your space, and then come back, work on it. Communication can be worked on, abuse cannot be worked on.
So the thing is, say there are some relationship. For example, I was working with this IVF center, right? So there were a lot of women, especially from conservative families, and they are in a place where they cannot leave the relationship, but they
Yeah.
still want to feel free, and they want to kind of feel very powerful, right? There's that sense of power and sense of freedom, and the sense that they have something to look forward to in life other than the relationship, other than the trauma that they're undergoing. So, is there any way for them to feel free without having to leave their relationship?
I think, this is something that's controversial that I'm about to say. I am a sort of radical feminist. I don't believe that women should be given a choice when it comes to independence or autonomy. So, in this specific context, I think money is power, right?
Money.
Women should, money, yes.
Money.
Money, yes, like cash, right? Assets, right? So I think when you have money, you have a say in your life. When you have money, people look at you differently. When you have money, you get to have your own preferences. You don't have to look at someone else and ask permission. As much as gender roles tells us that, it's good for us to be homemakers, it's good for us to, trust our family or our husband. um, it's better for us to trust ourselves. It's better for us to take care of ourselves. And see, I think for most women who are financially independent, right, you would see this woman is also very generous with how she treats other people in her life. But then the thing is, her generosity is in her control,
Hmm.
right? So I think for women who are struggling with their bodily issues, women who are struggling with their relationships, one very tangible thing that you can start working on right now that would serve you in the very near future is figure out a way to be financially secure.
I mean, kind of makes sense because a lot of women, I think it's difficult for them to leave the relationship only because they think about the money and the
Exactly.
financial background because they don't have things to support their children if they have any, or to support themselves if they have any. And I think a lot of people, I don't know, what do you think about this? A lot of people these days tell that women who study, women who work, get this freedom. That's why the divorce rates are higher. They have this consumption.
It's true. It's true.
And I don't think so that's a bad thing, because if you're
Exactly.
gonna keep abusing how people have been abused 20, 30, 40 years before, and you are expecting us to also continue this patriarchy and this abuse and not get out of this, and you're comparing that to the fact that you're saying we are getting divorced, the divorce rates are higher just because women are educated. That's just bullshit.
Exactly. And these women, when in these relationships, are going to have fertility issues. And this
Hmm.
is going to further, press on the relationship. So if you look at a lot of these women who come to fertility centers, you will see that they are in very toxic relationships. They don't want to have children, but then they have to have children just to prove that they are good enough.
Hmm.
And as much as it's about the children to prove your marital worth, it's also about keeping the woman in her place where she has to be small all her life, right? So I think one way to kind of fix our relationship with our hormones is to listen to our brain, listen to our nervous system, and act on it. So if I feel unsafe, what can I do to bring myself safety?
But I have a question that I
Yeah.
want. I think the listeners will have a question, especially if they are not educated, if they have never worked at like a proper job, office job. Well, how can they kind of get the financial freedom or get money in their hands? How can they do it?
You have many vocational professions, right? Like for instance, this is something that our government does. This is something that you see culturally, a lot of women taking up. Even like people who I think initially when women started to work, it was something to do with tailoring, it was something to do with the arts, it was something to do with cooking. I think even
Embroidery.
exactly, so even small things like this kind of makes a whole lot of a difference when it comes to how you feel about your own self. Your
Hmm.
self-worth shoots up when you get to produce things, right? Unfortunately, right, most of these women would choose to do unpaid labor in the form of like home care and like child care. But if you are willing to kind of make sure that you're getting paid for your labor, you get to also have a very good psychological environment for yourself, right? Where you can feel good about the fact that there's money in your hands and you can do whatever you want with it.
I think we've come a long way from talking about PCOS and to connecting it to emotional factors and childhood maltreatment to abuse and now to money. And
Yeah.
I know it, when you put it across like that, it doesn't make sense, but it all is interconnected, right?
Yeah,
So I
exactly. So
think,
everything is,
yeah, like I think one thing I want to encourage or tell the listeners is I know these are very scary and we are not intending to make you uncomfortable or discourage you or scare you, right? So we just really want you to have a healthy relationship and a happy relationship. At the same time, you also, when you're making a choice to have a child, when you're making a choice about your body, choose to feel good about yourself, choose to love yourself, choose to take care of yourself and reflect on yourself, because you are the one who's creating life into the world. You need to really think that you matter, instead of like treating you like a piece of garbage, piece of, this it, you really need to take care of yourself. And I think this is what we all want, we both of us want to tell the listeners who's hearing us.
it was very beautifully put, and I'm feeling a little bit emotional right now.
I'm feeling little low as well, but I guess it's little heavy content that we spoke about. We always talk about. But then this time, I think it might be a little difficult for a lot of people to hear, I guess.
Yeah. Um,
I think this is kind of a good place to for us to end and leave our listeners to think about themselves, their relationship, their body, and their emotions. And I think we will take this forward in the further episodes. Yeah, and if you
yeah.
really want to listen to this more, you like our content, please do like us and subscribe to our channel in YouTube, Spotify, and Instagram. We'll be posting a lot of shorts. Follow us, comment your thoughts, give your feedback, and we're looking forward to it. Until next
Yeah.
time,
Bye.
ciao, ciao.